Hey, nerds, you know what's really hard? Drawing a circle freehand. You know what's even harder? Drawing circles in one-point perspective. Because, I don't know if you noticed, okay, you take something that's circular around, but as your angle in which you're viewing the object changes, so whether it is being tilted away from you or tilted towards you, okay, you're above it or below it, it's no longer a circle, it turns into an oval, okay? And that's something that's extremely tricky to figure out how to get it in like a room, okay? I don't know if you've heard of this artist, but Yayoi Kusama, she has a fetish with dots. She really likes dots. But this room kind of illustrates how we are trying to recreate circles, but using one-point perspective. Notice how the circles are very narrow, okay? They're now skinny, skinny ovals here, but they're more circles here and a little bit rounder ovals here, okay, depending on where they're located in the space, okay? So what we're going to talk about is how to create things that are supposed to be circles. So whether you are adding a hobbit door to your room, or you are creating a mirror or a window that's supposed to be circular, or some other object in the space, maybe it's a light fixture, and you need to get that circle and have it look believable in the space. So I'm going to walk through one, and then I'm going to show you a couple others. So we're going to need a couple orthogonal lines, and basically what this is doing is creating the bottom and the top of whatever circles we are going to be adding here. All right, here's the bottom, here's the top. Now the next thing we're going to do is we are going to create segments. We're going to use some vertical lines to divide up this area into chunks, okay? And we're trying to create chunks that would appear to be you know, squares if we were looking straight at them, okay? And if a square is on one of these side walls, it's actually going to be a little bit skinnier, about like this, okay, versus anything else. So I'm going to add a little space in between. Then I'm going to do another one. And this one obviously is bigger because it's closer. All right? So that's the first thing I want you to see, okay? Here's my outline for each of those. Now what we're going to do is we are going to actually find the center. So you're going to end up connecting these corners, okay? So use your ruler, or if you feel really comfortable freehanding it, okay, get those X's right in there. All right? So what you just did is you found the center of that square, okay? And what that's going to help you do is help you get the curves of the circle just right as you're going to sketch it in there. Now the next thing I want you to do is I want you to divide it in half both directions. So for this one, okay, you're just going straight, creating a vertical line that goes through that center. And then to do the other halfway is you're just going to line up and create an additional orthogonal through the center. Okay, so that's perfectly in the center. And what you're going to do is you're basically going to connect the dots. So I'm going to add some dots here. These are where the edges of your circles need to touch. They need to touch this point on that tilted square. So I'm going to create a nice curve, touch the top, bend down, create a curve. So I'm creating that curve and making sure I touch all four of those dots that I made. And you'll notice that your curve is going to be slightly more sharp on one side than the other, and that is how it's going to look, because that's how perspective works. All right, there you go. You got some circles right there, and that's the gist of how you can have that happen, okay? And the size, size does not make a difference whether they're really big or really small. You start with creating something like this, okay? And the thing that also plays a huge role is, say if I made one of these super skinny, okay, it's going to totally skew how I look at that specific circle, okay? So I'll show you one example. And if for some reason the way it looks on the wall looks funny, it doesn't look wide enough, or it's too skinny, you need to adjust how wide you made your first mark to make the square. Okay, here's my mark, And I'll get the halfway mark. Okay, so I'm going to be connecting this, and this is going to be a much sharper circle. Do you notice the big difference between these two? Okay. Now what you're going to have to figure out is which one makes the most sense. Okay, and to be 100% honest, this is what you probably want to have on your wall versus one of these. This looks like it's slightly tilted towards you, so it's still about this far away. But our wall is probably a little bit more. Okay. So some of it's just playing around, actually looking at something circular that's on the wall that might make the most sense to create that space. But the first thing is to make that square, to find the center of the square, to mark the halfway points, and making sure your circle touches all those halfway points. So let's check out what a couple more look like. Alright, so now we have the ones I was doing before right here on that wall. We got one on the floor. Okay, got some ceiling lights. Notice how I added a curve that was parallel with the curve that I had to show some depth. Did the same thing here on my makeshift hobbit door. I really should look at a picture of one because this one's pretty trash. Doorknob in the middle, obviously. Okay, but the big thing is just remembering to get that X for the halfway, put the lines of the halfway, use one of those orthogonals, and then connect those 4 dots when you're making circles. So that's all I got, and look to Kusama for some inspiration on putting circles in your room.